In 1971, the Pereira family became the center of attention when their home was targeted by supernatural human-like faces that appeared and disappeared around their house, seemingly at random. When Maria Gomez noticed a stranger's face had seemingly become imprinted on the concrete floor of the kitchen, her husband destroyed the image using a pickaxe. However, a week later, the image returned near the destroyed pile of concrete, and they alerted the media. They sent it in for testing, and over the course of the next 30 years, random male and female faces, displaying a variety of expressions, would appear on the floor of the home. The Gomezes tried everything to rid themselves of the apparitions, but they were never successful. To this day, the strange phenomenon has not been able to be scientifically explained, though a supernatural explanation persists, as the foundation of the building was built on a graveyard. Don Decker, more famously known as the Rain Man, brought mystery and intrigue to a small town in the early 1990s when a strange event occurred at his temporary residence after the death of his abusive grandfather. Decker was staying at the home of the Kiefers, a husband and wife who were family friends. Deep into the evening, Decker fell into a trance-like state, just as water droplets began to form around the creases in the walls and ceilings. As the water continued to appear, the Kiefers called police to investigate. Patrolman Richard Wolbert arrived at the scene first, noticing that the Kiefers' entire home had become drenched. Wolbert describes the scene in his own words. "We were standing just inside the front door and met this droplet of water traveling horizontally. It passed between us and just traveled out into the next room. The water droplets continued to travel around the house until they met with solid surfaces." The incident received national attention when the story aired on Unsolved Mysteries in February 1993. No scientific explanation for the event has ever been deemed possible. The rumored result of a radioactive missile test gone awry. A desert patch in Bolson de Mapimi, Mexico, has long been understudied due to its high levels of magnetite in the soil. This is said to have happened when a US missile from Arizona crashed into the sands of the desert and contaminated the surrounding area. The side effect of the crash includes an invisible force field that nullifies the radio waves of any technical device that enters it, dissuading modern researchers. However, inside the patch of desert, which is relatively safe for human entry, witnesses have described multiple orbs, lights, and UFOs, as well as several spottings of humanoid creatures which ask for water. The most anyone has ever gotten out of them in regards to where they came from has been the response, "From above." While it's easy to dismiss the claims as hyper-superstition, no one has been able to say if the strange occurrences are due to the relatively large amounts of meteors that have fallen into the area, or if the rumor of a rogue missile has more truth to it than the US government is willing to admit. On August 7, 1994, Oakville, Washington found itself covered in a gelatinous slime that fell from the sky like rain. The sludge, which would go on to appear 6 times over the course of 3 weeks, was clear and thick, often obscuring the windshields of driving vehicles to the point they'd have to pull over and clear the goo manually. This is what happened to Officer David Lacey, who had to pull into a gas station late one evening and remove the slime, as his windshield wipers would not get rid of the sludge. Strange in and of itself, residents of Oakville suddenly become violently ill for almost 2 months after the slime's appearance, and many pets died after coming in contact with the strange goo. The biggest theory of the origins of the slime is that a military naval bombing gone awry sent a massive school of jellyfish into the atmosphere, a phenomenon known as star jelly, and the sludge settled 50 miles inland to Oakville. To this day, the Air Force denies any knowledge or responsibility of the appearance of the thick jelly-like substance. Gloria Ramirez, a Riverside, California woman, was the result of mysterious medical circumstance after she was wheeled into Riverside General Hospital for emergency surgery. Ramirez, who had previously been diagnosed with severe cervical cancer, suffered from tachycardia and Cheyne-Stokes respiration, was confused and in extreme pain as nurses and doctors took her blood. They noticed, however, her blood gave off an ammonia-esque scent, and her blood had thickened, with with manila-colored crystals lodged inside. Ramirez did not survive her surgery, and soon after, every nurse and doctor working around her grew sick. The emergency room was evacuated, but in the coming days, 5 workers would be hospitalized with dangerously high fevers. All the medical staff recovered, but there has never been a medical diagnosis to what happened to Ramirez, who has now been dubbed the Toxic Lady. The municipality of HESSDALEN in Norway has been a sight to behold, as for years abstract shapes of light have sparkled and glimmered across the night sky with no scientific explanation. Dubbed the HESSDALEN Lights, they have gained notoriety since their recordings in the early 1940s. From December 1981 to the summer of 1984, the HESSDALEN Lights were common, often appearing between 15 and 20 times a week by civilians. The phenomenon is a huge tourist attraction for the municipality, even though the lights have appeared on a more random basis and not nearly as often. At most, they can now be seen 10 to 20 times a year. The lights themselves are bright white or bold yellows that float just above ground level and sometimes last more than an hour. This phenomenon remains a great and beautiful natural mystery of the Northern Hemisphere. While the Black Knight satellite is a favorite for conspiracy theorists, there has never been any evidence to point to the contrary in regards to its existence. The Black Knight satellite first received attention in 1954 when retired naval aviation major and UFO hobbyist Donald Kehoe stated the U.S. Air Force had received radio signals that pointed to evidence of 2 satellites orbiting the Earth. A shocking revelation at this time in history, because no first world power had the means to create a functioning satellite and launch it into Earth's orbit. NASA photos reportedly show the satellite in action in 1998, and even in 2015, a video of a woman spotting a strange object in the sky surfaced, with many believing the object in question is indeed the Black Knight satellite. Another phenomenon that has yet to be diagnosed by the scientific community is that of the hum, in which a low-frequency humming or droning can be heard by a select few individuals, but is often too low to be heard by all. These events have taken place all over the UK and the United States, often having disturbing effects on those who can hear them, and inciting many of them into bouts of insanity. The hum was first reported in the 1950s by people with no history of mental illness, and has since been reported as targeting the same kind of individuals in modern times. Many describe the sound of the hum as an incessant idling diesel engine close by. The hum continues to persist in our contemporary day and age, but seems to be less reported. Scientists remain baffled at the origin of the hum, having no tangible evidence for why it continues to persist in the human species. Ohio University's Wilson Hall is a residence building reportedly housing a playful apparition that has kept students from rooming in dorm 428 since the 1970s. Rumors suggest that a student's mysterious death has left his spiritual presence wandering around the small room, often tossing objects around and slamming doors before room 428 was closed to the public. In addition to the unexplained movement, a terrifying demon-like face appears in the wood grain of the front door, and despite its constant removal and replacement, the face continues to appear again and again. Room 428 has been the centerpiece of paranormal investigation for some time, but no scientific evidence can explain away the mysterious happenings in Wilson Hall. Presenting a strong case for reincarnation are the POLLOCK sisters, Jillian and Jennifer. Born in 1958, the girls were welcomed by a mother and father who had recently been struck with tragedy. 2 years earlier, in 1956, their first pair of twin girls were killed in a horrific traffic accident. Strangely enough, Jillian was born with the same birthmark as one of her deceased older sisters, and both Jillian and Jennifer began to psychically recount aspects of their sisters' lives they could not have known. They were able to recognize the house the Pollocks lived in at the time of their older sister's deaths, as well as which toys belonged to which deceased sister. As if not horrifying enough, both Jillian and Jennifer had the ability to relive and recount the awful car crash that took their older sisters' lives in explicit graphic detail.